No one wanted to dance with the millionaire's 7-year-old paralyzed son until a poor 7-year-old girl invited him. What the millionaire does next will make you cry. Before we unfold this journey, press like and share where you're from and your favorite life lesson. The ballroom sparkled like a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across marble floors where dozens of 7-year-olds twirled in their finest clothes. But in the corner sat Timothy Harrison, his small wheelchair positioned beside towering floral arrangements, watching as every child in his grade celebrated Emma's birthday party. Everyone except him. "Why don't you go ask someone to dance?" His nanny, Mrs. Rodriguez, whispered gently, adjusting the navy blazer his father had insisted he wear. Timothy's fingers gripped the armrest tighter, his legs motionless beneath a carefully arranged blanket. "They don't want to dance with me," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the orchestral music his father, William Harrison, had hired for the occasion. William stood across the room, discussing quarterly profits with other parents, occasionally glancing toward his son with that familiar mixture of love and helplessness. Timothy had been paralyzed since birth, his spinal condition discovered during his mother Sarah's difficult pregnancy. Now, 2 years after Sarah's death from cancer, William struggled to balance building his tech empire with raising a disabled child who seemed to retreat further into himself each passing day. As Beauty and the Beast began playing, children paired off naturally, their laughter echoing through the Harrison family's rented ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton. Timothy watched Marcus, the class athlete, spin Pretty Isabella. He watched quiet Nathan awkwardly hold hands with giggling Sophie. He watched everyone except himself. Then through the crowd of silk dresses and tiny tuxedos, he noticed her. A small girl with auburn curls stood near the dessert table, wearing a simple yellow dress that looked homemade. Unlike the other children, she wasn't dancing either. She was watching him. Their eyes met across the room, and Timothy felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. But instead of looking away like everyone else did, the girl smiled. Actually smiled. Then, to Timothy's complete shock, she began walking toward him, her worn black shoes silent on the marble floor. "Hi," she said, stopping directly in front of his wheelchair. "I'm Lucy Sullivan. You look sad." Timothy stared up at her, speechless. No child had approached him voluntarily at a social event, ever. I'm Timothy," he stammered. Lucy tilted her head, studying him with curious green eyes. "Do you want to dance?" The question hit Timothy like lightning. Around them, conversation seemed to fade. His heart hammered against his ribs as he searched her face for signs of pity or mockery, but found only genuine kindness. "I can't," he whispered, gesturing toward his legs. "I can't walk." Lucy's smile never wavered. "That's okay. I can't afford fancy shoes like everyone else, but I still want to dance." She glanced down at her simple dress, then back at him. "Maybe we can figure it out together?" Across the room, William Harrison had stopped mid-sentence, his phone call forgotten as he watched this extraordinary moment unfold. Other parents began noticing too, conversations gradually quieting as they observed the unexpected interaction. Lucy extended her small hand toward Timothy. "Will you dance with me?" Timothy's throat tightened with emotion he didn't understand. No one had ever asked him that question. In his 7 years of life, filled with medical appointments, physical therapy, and well-meaning but ultimately unsuccessful social interactions, no one had ever simply asked if he wanted to dance. With trembling fingers, he reached out and took her hand. "Show me how," Lucy said softly, her hand warm in Timothy's. Around them, other children continued their clumsy waltzing, but Timothy felt as if he and Lucy existed in their own small world. "I don't know how to dance," Timothy admitted, his voice barely audible. No one ever." Lucy squeezed his hand gently. "My mama taught me before she got sick. She said dancing isn't about your feet, it's about your heart." She paused, her green eyes serious. "Can you move your arms?" Timothy nodded, demonstrating by lifting his arms. Lucy's face lit up with delight. "Perfect! Then we can dance." She positioned herself beside his wheelchair, took his right hand in her left, and began swaying gently to the music. "See? Just move your arms like this and feel the music." Timothy followed her lead, moving his arms in rhythm with hers. To his amazement, it actually felt like dancing. Not the traditional ballroom dancing happening around them, but something uniquely theirs. Lucy hummed along with the orchestra, occasionally spinning in a small circle while keeping hold of his hand. From across the room, William watched in stunned silence. His son's face had transformed completely, the constant sadness replaced by wonder and joy. William hadn't seen Timothy smile like that since before Sarah's death. "Who is that little girl?" asked Margaret Thornton, Emma's mother, as she approached William. Her tone carried a hint of disapproval. "I don't recognize her from our usual circle." William's jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" He continued watching as Lucy leaned down to whisper something in Timothy's ear, causing him to laugh, actually laugh, for the first time in months. "Well, I suppose not," Margaret replied stiffly. "It's just, her dress looks rather modest." Before William could respond, Mrs. Rodriguez appeared at his elbow. "Mr. Harrison," she whispered urgently, "you need to see this." William followed his son's nanny's gaze back to the dance floor, where something remarkable was happening. Other children had begun to notice Timothy and Lucy's unique dance. Instead of staring rudely or whispering, they were watching with genuine curiosity and interest. 8-year-old Marcus approached them first. "That looks cool," he said to Timothy. "Can you teach me?" Timothy's eyes widened in shock. Marcus, the most popular boy in their grade, wanted to learn from him. What?" Lucy beamed. "Timothy invented a new kind of dancing," she announced proudly. "Show him, Timothy." With Lucy's encouragement, Timothy demonstrated their arm movements. Within minutes, Marcus was attempting to copy the motion, laughing as he tried to coordinate his arms with the rhythm. Soon, Isabella joined them, then Nathan and Sophie. William felt tears prick his eyes as he watched his isolated son become the center of positive attention. For the first time in Timothy's life, other children weren't staring at his disability. They were asking him to teach them something. "This is unprecedented," whispered Dr. Reginald Foster, the family physician who had attended the party with his own grandchildren. "Timothy is actually leading social interaction." But even as joy filled William's heart, he noticed something troubling. Lucy's yellow dress, which had seemed charming in the ballroom's soft lighting, showed signs of careful mending. Her shoes, while polished, were clearly second-hand. Her hair, though neatly braided, lacked the professional styling of the other children. This little girl, who had given his son such a precious gift, was clearly from a very different world than their own. As the song ended, Timothy was breathless with excitement. "Lucy, that was amazing. I never knew I could—" "Timothy," Lucy interrupted, her face suddenly pale. "I have to go. Mama's here to pick me up." Across the ballroom, William spotted a woman in a simple blue cardigan and worn jeans, clearly uncomfortable among the elegantly dressed parents. She was beckoning to Lucy with obvious urgency. "Will I see you again?" Timothy asked desperately, panic creeping into his voice. Lucy hesitated, glancing toward her mother, then back at Timothy. "I hope so," she said softly, then leaned down and kissed his cheek. "Thank you for dancing with me." Before Timothy could respond, she was gone, hurrying across the marble floor toward her waiting mother. Timothy watched until they disappeared through the ballroom's ornate doors, his heart sinking as his magical evening came to an abrupt end. William Harrison stood frozen, watching his son's face crumble as he realized his newfound friend had vanished into the night, possibly forever. The following Monday morning found Timothy unusually animated at breakfast, something that hadn't happened since his mother's death 14 months ago. He pushed his scrambled eggs around his plate while chattering about the weekend party, his eyes bright with residual excitement. "And then Lucy said dancing was about your heart, not your feet," Timothy explained to Mrs. Rodriguez for the third time. "She didn't care that I can't walk. She just wanted to dance with me." William lowered his Wall Street Journal, studying his son's transformed demeanor. In 48 hours, Timothy had mentioned Lucy Sullivan approximately 37 times. William had been counting. "Dad, can we invite Lucy over for dinner?" Timothy asked suddenly, looking at his father with hope that made William's chest tighten. "I want to show her my room and my train set. Maybe we could have another dance." William set down his coffee cup carefully. Since Saturday night, he'd been grappling with an uncomfortable truth. He had no idea how to contact Lucy Sullivan or her family. In their affluent social circle, everyone knew everyone. But Lucy had appeared at Emma's party like a fairy godmother and vanished just as mysteriously. "Timothy," William began gently, "we don't have Lucy's phone number or address." Timothy's face fell slightly, but his optimism remained intact. "Can't we find her? She goes to my school, right?" Actually, William wasn't certain about that either. Emma's mother had invited Timothy's entire second-grade class, but William suspected Lucy might have been a last-minute addition, or perhaps the child of a caterer or musician. Mrs. Rodriguez interceded smoothly. "Perhaps we can ask Emma's mother for Lucy's information." An hour later, William found himself in an uncomfortable phone conversation with Margaret Thornton. Her response to his inquiry was telling. "Lucy Sullivan?" Margaret's voice carried obvious distaste. "Oh yes, that child. She wasn't originally invited, you understand. Her mother cleans the Ritz-Carlton ballrooms, and somehow the little girl wandered in during setup. Emma insisted she could stay." A pause. "I do hope Timothy wasn't too attached to her company." William's grip tightened on his phone. "Are you saying Lucy crashed the party?" "Crashed is such an ugly word," Margaret replied primly. "Let's say she was, an unexpected guest. Regardless, I doubt you'll see her again. People from that background don't typically maintain connections with families like ours." After ending the call, William sat in his home office, staring out at the manicured gardens of his Beacon Hill estate. Lucy Sullivan, the little girl who had given his son the first genuine happiness he'd experienced in over a year, was the daughter of a hotel cleaning woman who had accidentally wandered into their privileged world. The revelation should have simplified things. In William's experience, maintaining appropriate social boundaries was important for Timothy's development. The boy needed friends from stable, similar backgrounds who could provide consistent, long-term companionship. But Timothy's laughter from Saturday night echoed in William's memory. Pure, uninhibited joy, something no amount of money had been able to purchase for his son. That afternoon, William made an unprecedented decision. Instead of heading to his downtown office, he drove to the Ritz-Carlton. The hotel manager, recognizing one of their most frequent corporate clients, was immediately accommodating. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Elena Sullivan works the evening housekeeping shift, Monday through Friday. She's been with us for 3 years. Excellent employee, very reliable." William checked his watch. It was 2:30 p.m. Elena's shift wouldn't begin for several hours. "Could you provide me with her contact information? It's regarding her daughter." The manager's expression became cautious. "Sir, I'm afraid hotel policy prevents us from sharing employee personal information without their consent. However, I could deliver a message if you'd like." William considered his options. Showing up unannounced at a hotel employee's home would be inappropriate and potentially intimidating. But leaving a formal message through hotel management seemed impersonal for something this important. "Please tell Mrs. Sullivan that William Harrison would like to speak with her about her daughter Lucy. Here's my card. Ask her to call me at her convenience. Driving home through Boston traffic, William found himself hoping Elena Sullivan would call. Timothy needed this connection, this friendship that had awakened something beautiful in his previously withdrawn son. But as evening approached without word from Elena, William began to worry. Perhaps Margaret Thornton was right. Perhaps Lucy's brief appearance in Timothy's life had been a magical accident that couldn't, or shouldn't, be repeated. That night, Timothy asked 3 more times when they could see Lucy again. Each question felt like a small knife in William's heart, because he was beginning to suspect the answer might be never. By Wednesday, Timothy's enthusiasm had begun to fade, replaced by a familiar melancholy that made William desperate to find Elena Sullivan and her remarkable daughter. Elena Sullivan stared at the business card the hotel manager had given her hands trembling slightly as she read the embossed name, William Harrison, CEO, Harrison Technologies. She recognized the name, of course. Harrison Technologies owned half the office buildings she cleaned at night. "Mama, what's wrong?" Lucy asked from their small kitchen table, where she was carefully completing her homework with a pencil worn down to a stub. Elena folded the card and slipped it into her apron pocket. "Nothing, sweetheart. How was school today?" "Fine," Lucy replied, but Elena noticed her daughter's usual cheerfulness was subdued. For 3 days now, Lucy had been asking about the boy in the wheelchair she danced with at the fancy party. "Do you think I'll see Timothy again?" Elena's heart ached. She'd watched from the ballroom service entrance as her daughter danced with the Harrison boy, creating a moment of pure magic in that glittering world so far removed from their cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Southie. When Lucy had wandered into the ballroom during Elena's setup shift, Elena should have immediately removed her. Instead, she'd watched in amazement as the other children welcomed Lucy, as if her simple yellow dress and second-hand shoes didn't matter. But they did matter. Elena knew how these things worked. She'd been cleaning up after Boston's wealthy families for years, invisible in their world of privilege and assumption. "Mama!" Lucy's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Are you going to call him?" Eleanor's eyes widened. "Call who, honey?" "The man from the party. You have his card." Lucy's green eyes were too perceptive for a 7-year-old. "I saw you reading it." Elena sat down across from her daughter, studying Lucy's earnest face. "How did you know?" "He kept watching us dance," Lucy explained. "He looked sad like Timothy. I think he wants his little boy to be happy." Out of the mouths of babes, Elena thought. She pulled out William Harrison's business card again, reading the phone number she'd already memorized. "Lucy, sweetheart, Timothy lives in a very different world than we do. His father is very wealthy, very important. Sometimes—" "So," Lucy interrupted, her voice firm with 7-year-old logic. "Timothy didn't care that my dress was old. He just wanted to dance." Elena looked at her daughter's determined expression and saw herself at that age, before life had taught her about boundaries and limitations, when anything seemed possible if you simply believed hard enough. That evening, after Lucy had gone to bed, Elena stared at her phone for 20 minutes before finally dialing William Harrison's number. He answered on the second ring. "William Harrison. Mr. Harrison, this is Elena Sullivan from the Ritz-Carlton, about Lucy." "Mrs. Sullivan." The relief in his voice was unmistakable. "Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would." Elena gripped the phone tighter. "Is Timothy in some kind of trouble?" Lucy didn't mean to cause any problems by— "No," William interrupted quickly. "Quite the opposite. Timothy hasn't stopped talking about Lucy since Saturday night. She gave him something I've been trying to give him for months, genuine happiness." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. Lucy's been asking about him too. "Mrs. Sullivan, I know this might sound unusual, but would you and Lucy consider joining Timothy and me for dinner, perhaps this Saturday?" Elena's breath caught. A billionaire was inviting her and her daughter to dinner. The impossibility of the situation crashed over her like a wave. "Mr. Harrison, I appreciate the invitation, but please, William's voice carried a vulnerability Elena hadn't expected. Timothy has been withdrawn since his mother died. Your daughter brought him back to life for one evening. I'm not asking for anything complicated, just the chance for two children to be friends. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of Lucy's disappointed face when she asked about Timothy. Where did you have in mind? Wherever you'd be comfortable, William replied immediately. A restaurant, our home, your home, whatever feels right for Lucy. The fact that he'd put Lucy's comfort first surprised Elena. In her experience, wealthy people expected others to adjust to their preferences. There's a family restaurant in Southie, she said slowly, Murphy's Diner. Nothing fancy, but the food is good, and Lucy loves their chocolate cake. Perfect, William said without hesitation. Saturday at 6? After hanging up, Elena sat in her quiet kitchen, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Lucy and Timothy came from worlds so far apart that their friendship seemed destined for heartbreak. But Lucy's joy from Saturday night had been real. And if William Harrison was willing to bring his son to a working-class diner in South Boston, maybe, just maybe, some barriers could be crossed after all. From her bedroom, Lucy called out sleepily, "Mama? Was that Timothy's dad?" Elena smiled despite her worries. "Yes, sweetheart, we're having dinner with them on Saturday." Lucy's delighted squeal of happiness made Elena's decision feel exactly right. Saturday evening found William Harrison more nervous than before any board presentation or merger negotiation in his 15-year career. He'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a simple sweater, the most casual outfit he'd worn in public since college. Timothy, however, was practically vibrating with excitement beside him as they approached Murphy's Diner in South Boston. "Dad, what if Lucy doesn't remember me? What if she doesn't want to be friends anymore?" "Timothy, you danced together for an hour," William reminded him gently, though he harbored similar fears. "I don't think she's forgotten you." Murphy's Diner was exactly what Elena had described, a genuine neighborhood establishment with red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the warm smell of comfort food. It was also completely outside William's usual experience, and he felt conspicuously out of place among the working-class families enjoying their Saturday dinners. Then he spotted them in a corner booth, and his apprehensions melted away. Lucy was wearing a clean pink sweater and jeans, her auburn hair pulled back with a simple ribbon. Elena, dressed in a modest blue dress, looked as nervous as William felt. But Lucy's face transformed the moment she saw Timothy. She practically bounced in her seat, waving enthusiastically as William pushed Timothy's wheelchair toward their table. "Timothy, you came!" Lucy's pure joy was infectious, and Timothy's answering grin lit up the entire diner. "Hi, Lucy," Timothy said shyly, suddenly self-conscious now that the moment had arrived. Elena stood as they approached, extending her hand to William. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming all the way out here." William shook her hand, struck by her quiet dignity. Elena Sullivan was probably 32 or 33, with the same green eyes as her daughter and an obvious wariness around people from his world. "Please call me William, and thank you for agreeing to this." As they settled in, William sliding into the booth across from Elena, while Timothy positioned his wheelchair at the table's end next to Lucy, the initial awkwardness gradually gave way to something more comfortable. "Lucy's been planning this all week," Elena said with a soft smile. She insisted on wearing her fancy sweater. "It's not fancy," Lucy protested, but she was grinning. "I just wanted to look nice for Timothy." Timothy beamed at her, his usual social anxiety completely absent. "You look really pretty. I like your ribbon." William watched his son interact with Lucy and felt something shift in his chest. Timothy was relaxed, animated, completely himself in a way William rarely witnessed. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, approached their table. "What can I get you folks?" Lucy immediately launched into detailed descriptions of her favorite menu items, recommending the meatloaf to Timothy and insisting they save room for chocolate cake. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and soon Timothy was asking questions about everything from the jukebox in the corner to the old photographs covering the walls. "This place has been here forever," Elena explained. "My grandmother used to bring me here when I was Lucy's age. 4 generations of the Murphy family have run it," Lucy added proudly, then looked at William with curious eyes. "Do you have restaurants in your family?" William realized he'd never been asked such a direct, innocent question by a child other than Timothy. "No, sweetheart. My family builds computer software." "What's that?" Lucy asked with genuine interest. As William attempted to explain technology in 7-year-old terms, he became aware that other diners were watching their table with curiosity. Not rudely, but with obvious interest in the unusual combination of his expensive wheelchair, Timothy's medical equipment, and their presence in this distinctly blue-collar establishment. Elena noticed, too, her shoulders tensing slightly. "Is this too public?" she asked quietly. "We could—" "It's perfect," William interrupted, realizing he meant it. For the first time in months, he was somewhere that people weren't watching Timothy with pity or treating William with calculated deference. Here, they were simply 2 families sharing dinner. Their food arrived, and Lucy immediately began cutting her meatloaf into small pieces for Timothy, naturally accommodating his limited hand strength without making it seem like assistance. The gesture was so instinctive, so kind, that William felt tears threaten. "Lucy, tell Timothy about your school," Elena encouraged. As the children chatted about teachers and classmates, William found himself studying Elena Sullivan. She was clearly educated, well-spoken, and devoted to her daughter. Her circumstances might be modest, but her character was evident in every interaction with Lucy. "Elena," he said during a lull in the children's conversation, "may I ask, Lucy's father?" Elena's expression became guarded. "He left when Lucy was 2. We've been on our own since then." William nodded, recognizing the pain behind her simple words. "Timothy's mother died of cancer when he was 5. I understand about being a single parent." Something shifted in Elena's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of their shared experience despite their vastly different circumstances. "It's hard," she said simply. "Yes," William agreed. "It is." Lucy and Timothy, oblivious to the adult conversation, were now planning elaborate games they could play together. Their easy friendship, formed in a single magical evening, was deepening with every shared laugh. As dessert arrived, chocolate cake that prompted squeals of delight from both children, William made a decision that would have shocked his business associates. "Elena, would you and Lucy like to spend next Saturday at our house? Timothy has been wanting to show Lucy his train set." Elena hesitated, clearly torn between Lucy's obvious desire to accept and her own discomfort with their social divide. It was Lucy who answered, her face shining with excitement. "Really? We can come to your house?" "If your mother says yes," William replied, looking at Elena with gentle encouragement. Elena looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Timothy's equally eager expression, and smiled. "I think that would be wonderful." As they left Murphy's diner that evening, William realized that for the first time since Sarah's death, Timothy was part of a genuine friendship, and so, surprisingly, was he. The following Saturday, Elena gripped Lucy's hand as they approached the Harrison estate in Beacon Hill, her daughter's excited chatter barely penetrating the anxiety clouding Elena's thoughts. The iron gates, manicured gardens, and imposing Georgian mansion represented everything she'd spent her adult life cleaning but never belonging to. "Mama, look how big it is." Lucy pressed her face against their taxi window, her breath fogging the glass. "Timothy's house is like a castle. Elena forced a smile, calculating that this single taxi ride had cost nearly half her daily wages. But Lucy's joy made every dollar worthwhile. William met them at the front door, and Elena was relieved to see he'd dressed casually again. Khakis and a polo shirt that made him seem more approachable than the business suit she'd imagined. "Welcome," he said warmly, then crouched to Lucy's level. "Timothy's been waiting for you all morning. He set up something special in the train room." The house's interior was elegant but surprisingly warm, filled with family photographs rather than the cold perfection Elena had expected. She noticed several pictures of a beautiful woman with Timothy's dark eyes. His mother, Elena realized, feeling a pang of sympathy for both father and son. Timothy waited in what William called the train room, a converted bedroom containing an elaborate model railroad that wound through miniature towns and countryside. Lucy gasped with delight, and Timothy's face glowed with pride. "I built most of it myself," Timothy explained, maneuvering his wheelchair to the control panel. "Dad helped with the electrical parts, but I designed all the towns." For the next hour, Elena watched her daughter and Timothy play together with an ease that defied their different backgrounds. Lucy asked endless questions about the trains, while Timothy patiently explained how everything worked, clearly thrilled to have someone who shared his enthusiasm. William appeared beside Elena with coffee, and they settled into comfortable chairs overlooking the children's play area. "He's never been this animated with another child," William observed quietly. "Lucy has a gift for bringing out the best in people." Elena watched her daughter carefully help Timothy adjust a tiny building, her natural empathy evident in every gesture. She's always been like that. Even as a toddler, she gravitated toward anyone who seemed sad or left out. "Where does she get it from?" William asked, then added quickly, "I mean, obviously from you, but actually from her grandmother." Elena interrupted with a sad smile. "My mother had this incredible ability to see the good in everyone, to make people feel valued. Lucy barely knew her, but somehow inherited that gift." They watched in comfortable silence as the children created elaborate stories for the train passengers, their laughter filling the large room with warmth. "Elena," William said suddenly, "I need to ask you something, and I hope you won't be offended." Elena tensed, waiting for the inevitable moment when their class differences would become an issue. "Timothy's birthday is in 3 weeks," William continued. "He's never had a real party, just family dinners with adults who don't know how to talk to children. Would you consider helping me plan something he'd actually enjoy? Something with Lucy and maybe a few other kids from school." Elena stared at him, completely blindsided. "You want my help planning a party?" "I want to give Timothy the kind of birthday party Lucy would plan," William clarified. "Something genuine and fun, not the formal affairs I usually organize. I have no idea how to create that." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. This wealthy, powerful man was asking her, a hotel cleaning woman, to help him give his son something money couldn't buy: authentic joy. "What did you have in mind?" she asked softly. "I was hoping you'd tell me," William admitted. "What makes Lucy happy at parties?" Elena thought of the simple celebrations in their small apartment. Homemade cake, games that required nothing but imagination, friends who cared about each other rather than expensive gifts. "Games where everyone can participate," she said slowly. "Food the kids actually want to eat, music they can dance to. Maybe we could have it somewhere Timothy feels comfortable but isn't too intimidating for other children." William nodded eagerly. "The community center where Timothy has physical therapy. It has a big room, wheelchair accessible, and the other kids from his therapy group know him there." As they discussed possibilities, Elena realized something remarkable was happening. William Harrison, despite his wealth and status, was genuinely seeking her advice because he recognized she understood something about childhood joy that his resources couldn't purchase. "Lucy!" Elena called out. come here for a minute." Lucy bounced over, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mama, Timothy showed me how to make the trains go through the mountain tunnel." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Timothy's daddy wants to ask you something." William leaned forward, speaking directly to Lucy with the seriousness he'd normally reserve for board members. "Lucy, if you were planning Timothy's birthday party, what would you want to do?" Lucy's eyes lit up as she considered the question. "Dancing," she said immediately, "like we did at Emma's party, but better, and games that Timothy can win too, and a cake he gets to pick himself." She paused thoughtfully. "And friends who really want to be there, not just kids whose parents make them come." William and Elena exchanged glances over Lucy's head. In her innocent wisdom, she'd identified exactly what had been missing from Timothy's previous birthdays. "Can you help us plan it?" William asked Lucy seriously. Lucy looked at Timothy, who nodded eagerly, then back at William. "Really? You want me and Mama to help?" "We need you and Mama to help," William corrected gently. "I don't know how to make Timothy as happy as you do." As the afternoon wound down, Elena realized that something fundamental had shifted. She and William had begun planning Timothy's party as partners, their different perspectives combining to create something neither could achieve alone. When their taxi arrived to take them home, Lucy hugged Timothy goodbye and made him promise to call her during the week. Timothy's face was radiant with happiness, and William's grateful smile told Elena everything she needed to know. Driving back to their modest apartment, Lucy chattered excitedly about trains and birthday plans, while Elena reflected on the impossible friendship that had bloomed between their families. Perhaps some barriers could be crossed after all, especially when children led the way with open hearts. "Mama," Lucy said suddenly, "Timothy's daddy looked less sad today." Elena smiled, remembering the genuine laughter she'd heard from William as he watched the children play. "Yes, sweetheart, he did." "Good," Lucy said with satisfaction. "Everyone should get to be happy sometimes." Out of the mouths of babes, Elena thought, squeezing her daughter's hand as their taxi carried them home through the bustling streets of Boston. Timothy's 8th birthday party at the Riverside Community Center was unlike anything William had ever organized. Gone were the formal decorations and hired entertainment. Instead, colorful balloons covered the accessible space, while Lucy directed the setup with the authority of a seasoned event planner. "The cake table goes here," Lucy announced, pointing to a spot where Timothy could easily reach everything. "And we need the music loud enough for dancing, but not so loud it hurts people's ears." Elena watched her daughter orchestrate the preparations with quiet pride while helping William hang streamers. Over the past 3 weeks, she and William had spoken almost daily, planning every detail to ensure Timothy's comfort and happiness. "You've created something special here," Dr. Foster observed, arriving early with his grandson. The family physician had watched Timothy's transformation with professional fascination. "I've never seen him this confident." Indeed, Timothy glowed with anticipation as guests began arriving. Unlike previous birthdays, where he'd sat quietly while adults managed everything, today he greeted each friend personally, his wheelchair decorated with ribbons Lucy had tied that morning. Marcus arrived with his parents, followed by Isabella, Nathan, Sophie, and 6 other classmates. But the real surprise came when Timothy's physical therapy group appeared, 5 children of varying ages and abilities who knew Timothy as a friend, not a curiosity. "This is perfect," whispered Mrs. Rodriguez to Elena. "Look at his face." Timothy was radiant, moving easily between his school friends and therapy friends, making introductions with natural grace. Lucy stayed close beside him, her presence giving him confidence to be the center of attention. When the music started, Lucy immediately took Timothy's hand. "Birthday dance first," she declared, and within moments they were recreating their magical connection from Emma's party months ago. But this time, was different. Instead of staring awkwardly, the other children gathered around, some joining in, others clapping along. Timothy had become the leader rather than the outcast, teaching his unique dance style to friends who genuinely wanted to learn. William stood against the wall, overwhelmed by emotion as he watched his son's joy. Beside him, Elena wiped away tears. "He's not the same boy," she whispered. "Neither is Lucy," William replied, watching Elena's daughter encourage shy therapy patients to join the dancing. She's become even more confident, more compassionate. As the afternoon progressed, Timothy opened presents with genuine excitement. Lucy had saved for weeks to buy him a small train car for his collection, and his delighted reaction made her beam with pride. "Speech! Speech!" Marcus called out as cake time approached. Timothy looked nervously at the expectant faces, then at Lucy, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly he maneuvered his wheelchair to the center of the room. "I want to thank everyone for coming," Timothy began, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Last year, I didn't want a party because I thought no one would want to celebrate with me. But Lucy taught me that friendship isn't about what you can't do, it's about what you share with people who care about you." He looked directly at Lucy. "Lucy, you gave me the best gift ever. You showed me I could be happy. Thank you for being my friend." The room erupted in applause as Lucy blushed furiously, and William felt his heart might burst with pride. His son, who had barely spoken to strangers a year ago, had just given a heartfelt speech to a room full of children. As the party wound down, parents began collecting their children, each stopping to tell William how wonderful Timothy had been as a host. But it was Margaret Thornton's comment that surprised him most. "William, I owe you an apology," Emma's mother said quietly. "I was wrong about Lucy. She's obviously been a wonderful influence on Timothy, and on Emma, too. My daughter has started including children she used to ignore, saying Lucy taught her that being different doesn't mean being less." After the last guest departed, Timothy, Lucy, Elena, and William sat surrounded by decorations and leftover cake, exhausted but happy. "Best birthday ever," Timothy declared, then looked thoughtful. "Dad, can we do something for Lucy's birthday too?" Lucy's face fell slightly. "My birthday isn't until December, and we usually just have cake at home." William and Elena exchanged glances. December was 8 months away, but William was already planning something special. "We'll figure something out," William promised, earning a grateful look from Elena. As they cleaned up, Timothy suddenly grabbed William's hand. "Dad, Lucy, and Mrs. Sullivan, they're family now, right?" William's throat tightened with emotion. "What do you think, son?" Timothy looked at Lucy, who was helping Elena pack up decorations with the same care she'd shown all day. "I think family is people who make you happy and take care of you. Lucy and her mom do that." Out of the mouths of babes, William thought, realizing his 8-year-old son had just articulated what he'd been feeling, but hadn't dared express. 3 months after Timothy's birthday party, Elena received a phone call that would change everything. She was preparing for her evening shift at the Ritz-Carlton when her supervisor delivered news that made her sink onto her small kitchen chair. "I'm sorry, Elena, but we're cutting the housekeeping staff by 40%. Corporate decision from Boston headquarters. Your last day will be Friday." Elena stared at the phone long after hanging up, panic rising in her chest. Without her hotel job, she couldn't afford their apartment, Lucy's school supplies, or even basic groceries. At 33, with only a high school education and years of cleaning experience, her employment options were severely limited. "Mama!" Lucy appeared in the doorway, her green eyes immediately detecting distress. "What's wrong?" Elena forced a smile. "Just some work changes, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." But over the next week, as Elena frantically searched for new employment, Lucy's questions became more perceptive. Why are you looking at newspapers all the time? Why did you tell Mrs. Patterson we might need to move? Elena had dreaded this conversation, but Lucy deserved honesty. They sat together on their worn couch, and Elena explained as gently as possible that sometimes adults lost their jobs and had to make difficult changes. "Will I have to change schools?" Lucy asked, her voice small. "I don't know yet, honey. I'm trying to find work, but it might take time." Lucy was quiet for a long moment, then brightened with 7-year-old optimism. "Maybe Timothy's dad can help. He has lots of jobs at his company." Elena's heart sank. She'd been dreading this possibility, that their financial crisis might intrude on the friendship that meant everything to Lucy and Timothy. "Sweetheart, we can't ask Mr. Harrison for help. It wouldn't be appropriate." "Why not?" Lucy demanded with the logic of a child who didn't understand adult pride. "Friends help each other." That afternoon, Lucy took matters into her own hands. During her regular phone call with Timothy, she explained the situation with the directness only children possessed. "My mama lost her job," Lucy told Timothy matter-of-factly. "She's very worried, and I think we might have to move away." Timothy's horrified reaction was immediate. "You can't move away. We're best friends." "I know," Lucy replied sadly. "But Mama says we might not have enough money for our apartment." That evening, Timothy confronted his father with an urgency William had never witnessed. "Dad, Lucy might have to move away because her mom lost her job. We have to help them." William's heart clenched. He'd suspected Elena was struggling financially, but their conversations had always focused on the children rather than adult concerns. "Timothy, it's complicated. Mrs. Sullivan is very proud, and she might not want our help." "But they're family," Timothy protested, using the same logic he'd expressed after his birthday party. "You help family." William found himself facing an impossible situation. Elena's pride would likely prevent her from accepting direct financial assistance, but losing Lucy would devastate Timothy. More than that, William realized, it would devastate him too. Over the months, Elena had become more than just Lucy's mother. She'd become a trusted friend whose quiet wisdom and genuine warmth had enriched his life immeasurably. The next morning, William made several phone calls. By afternoon, he had crafted what he hoped was an elegant solution. He called Elena that evening, choosing his words carefully. "Elena, I have a proposition that I hope you'll consider. My housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, is retiring next month after 20 years. I need someone trustworthy to manage the household, someone who understands children and can be there when Timothy gets home from school." Elena's sharp intake of breath told him she understood immediately. "William, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," William interrupted gently. "I need help and you need work. The position includes living quarters, a private apartment in the carriage house, so Lucy would be in the same school district as Timothy." Elena was quiet for so long, William wondered if she'd hung up. Finally she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "The salary?" William named a figure that was generous, but not insultingly so. Enough for Elena to maintain her dignity while ensuring her security. "There's one condition," William added. "Lucy and Timothy are best friends. I don't want employer-employee formality affecting their relationship or ours. We've become friends too, Elena. I'd like that to continue." Another long pause. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Elena, please say yes. Timothy needs Lucy, and honestly, I think I need both of you more than I'm comfortable admitting." That night, Lucy crawled into Elena's bed, something she hadn't done since she was much younger. "Mama, Timothy's dad called, didn't he?" Elena stroked her daughter's hair. "How did you know?" "Because you've been crying happy tears instead of sad ones," Lucy observed with 7-year-old wisdom. Elena smiled through her tears. "What do you think about living in the same house as Timothy?" Lucy's squeal of delight was answer enough. 2 weeks later, as Elena packed their modest belongings, she reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed since Lucy wandered into that ballroom. Her daughter's simple act of kindness had not only transformed Timothy's world, it had ultimately rescued their own. The carriage house apartment exceeded Elena's expectations in every way. Spacious, beautifully furnished, with large windows overlooking William's gardens. It felt like a palace compared to their cramped Southie apartment. Lucy's bedroom was twice the size of their old living room, and she spent her first evening arranging her few belongings with the reverence of someone who had never had so much space. "Mama, look!" Lucy called from her window. "I can see Timothy's room. We can wave to each other." Elena smiled, watching her daughter's joy, but she struggled with her own adjustment. Living in William's world, even as an employee, felt surreal. Everything from the marble countertops to the heated bathroom floors reminded her of the vast gulf between their backgrounds. William, however, seemed determined to minimize any awkwardness. When Elena arrived for her first official day, he'd prepared a detailed list of household responsibilities, but prefaced it with reassurance. "Elena, I want you to know that your primary job is being here for Timothy after school and managing the household basics. Mrs. Rodriguez handles most of Timothy's medical needs. You're not a servant, you're family who happens to receive a salary." Despite his kindness, Elena found the transition challenging. She felt like an imposter, arranging fresh flowers in crystal vases and discussing grocery preferences for a household where money was no object. Her cleaning experience helped with the practical aspects, but managing a mansion felt overwhelming. The children, however, adapted instantly. Having Lucy and Timothy in the same house was like watching two pieces of a puzzle finally connect. They fell into easy routines. Homework together at the kitchen table, shared meals, elaborate games that spanned both the main house and carriage apartment. "It's like having a sister," Timothy confided to his father one evening. "Lucy makes everything more fun." William found himself equally affected by the domestic changes. Coming home to children's laughter, Elena's warm presence and the smell of home-cooked meals created an atmosphere he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. The house felt alive again. But it was during Timothy's routine medical appointment that the true impact of their arrangement became clear. Dr. Foster examined Timothy with his usual thoroughness, then sat back with obvious amazement. "William, Timothy's muscle tone has improved significantly. His coordination is better, his mood is consistently positive, and his social confidence has transformed completely. The difference is remarkable," added Timothy's physical therapist. "He's more motivated during exercises, more willing to try challenging activities. Whatever changes you've made at home are working." That evening, William shared the medical feedback with Elena as they watched the children play in the garden. Timothy was attempting to teach Lucy how to throw a football from his wheelchair while she patiently retrieved his wobbly passes. "They think Lucy's presence is actually improving Timothy's physical condition," William explained. "Apparently, happiness and companionship have measurable effects on children with disabilities." Elena watched her daughter cheer enthusiastically as Timothy managed a particularly good throw. "Lucy's changed too. She's more confident, more articulate. Living here has exposed her to books, music, conversations she never would have experienced otherwise." They sat in comfortable silence, observing the children's play, when Timothy suddenly called out, "Dad! Mrs. Elena! Come play with us!" Elena hesitated. Was it appropriate for the housekeeper to join family games? But William was already moving toward the children, gesturing for her to follow. "Come on," he said with a grin. "Apparently, we're needed for some elaborate football strategy Lucy's devised." As the four of them spent the next hour in the garden, Elena realized something profound was happening. They weren't employer and employee supervising their children. They were becoming something much more complex and beautiful. A blended family created by circumstance, but sustained by genuine affection. That night, after the children were asleep, William knocked on the carriage house door. Elena invited him in for coffee, and they sat in her small living room discussing the day. "Elena, I need to ask you something," William said suddenly. "Are you happy here? Really happy, not just grateful for employment?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I'm happier than I've been in years," she admitted, "but sometimes I feel like I'm playing a role I'm not qualified for." William leaned forward earnestly. "You're not playing a role. You're being yourself, and that's exactly what Timothy and I needed. You've brought warmth and authenticity to our lives." Elena felt tears threaten. "I never imagined Lucy and I could have this kind of security, this kind of family." "Family," William repeated softly. "Yes, that's exactly what this has become." Outside, autumn leaves drifted past the windows, and Elena reflected on how much had changed since that magical evening when Lucy asked Timothy to dance. Her daughter's simple act of kindness had ultimately transformed two broken families into something stronger and more beautiful than either had imagined possible. As William prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Elena, there's something else I want you to know. Having you and Lucy here. It's not just good for Timothy. It's good for me too. I haven't felt this content since Sarah died." After he left, Elena sat in her comfortable chair, watching the lights in the main house gradually dim. For the first time in years, she felt truly secure, not just financially, but emotionally. Lucy would grow up surrounded by love, opportunity, and the unwavering friendship of a boy who valued her for exactly who she was. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight Elena Sullivan felt profoundly grateful for the unexpected path that had led them home. December arrived with Boston's first major snowfall, transforming the Harrison estate into a winter wonderland that left Lucy breathless with excitement. Her 8th birthday was approaching, and William had been secretly planning something special for weeks. But his plans were interrupted by an unexpected crisis that would test their newly blended family in ways none of them anticipated. It started with a phone call during breakfast. William answered with his usual professional demeanor, but Elena watched his expression grow increasingly grim as the conversation progressed. "I understand," William said finally. "Yes, I'll be on the next flight." Timothy looked up from his cereal, immediately sensing tension. "Dad, what's wrong?" "What's?" William sat heavily, running his hands through his hair. "There's a major problem with the Singapore project. Our biggest client is threatening to terminate their contract. I have to fly out immediately to handle the crisis personally." Elena's stomach dropped. In the months since moving in, she'd learned that William's business required occasional travel, but this sounded more serious than usual. "How long will you be gone?" Elena asked quietly. "At least 2 weeks, possibly longer," William replied, his distress evident. The timing couldn't be worse. Lucy's birthday, Christmas preparations, and Timothy has that important medical evaluation next week. Timothy's face crumpled. "But you can't miss Lucy's birthday. And what about my appointment with Dr. Foster?" William knelt beside Timothy's wheelchair, his voice gentle but firm. "Son, sometimes adults have to handle responsibilities even when the timing is terrible. Mrs. Elena will take care of everything here." Elena felt panic rise in her chest. Managing the household was one thing, but handling Timothy's complex medical needs, making major decisions, and somehow salvaging Lucy's birthday celebration felt overwhelming. "I can reschedule Dr. Foster," she offered weakly. "No," William said decisively. "That evaluation determines Timothy's physical therapy for the next 6 months. It can't be postponed." He looked at Elena with complete trust. "You know Timothy better than anyone except me. You can handle this." Later that evening, after William had departed for the airport, Elena sat in the carriage house feeling the weight of responsibility. Through her window, she could see Timothy in his room, clearly upset about his father's absence. Lucy appeared beside her, unusually subdued. "Mama, is Mr. William going to lose his company?" Elena was startled by her daughter's perceptiveness. "Why would you think that, sweetheart?" "Because he looked scared," Lucy observed with 8-year-old directness. "Adults only look that scared when something really bad might happen." Elena pulled Lucy close, realizing her daughter had developed a sophisticated understanding of adult emotions during their months with the Harrisons. The next few days tested Elena in ways she'd never imagined. Timothy struggled with his father's absence, becoming withdrawn and uncooperative during physical therapy. His medical appointment with Dr. Foster loomed, requiring Elena to manage complex scheduling and insurance authorizations she barely understood. Meanwhile, Lucy's birthday approached with no celebration planned. Elena had intended to organize something simple, but between Timothy's needs and household responsibilities, she felt completely overwhelmed. It was Lucy who provided the solution, demonstrating wisdom beyond her years. "Mama," she said on Wednesday evening, "I have an idea about my birthday." Elena looked up from the stack of insurance forms she was struggling to complete. "What's that, honey? What if we don't have a party this year? What if instead we do something special for Timothy to help him feel better about his dad being away?" Elena stared at her daughter, amazed by her selflessness. "Lucy, it's your birthday. You shouldn't have to give up your celebration." "I'm not giving it up," Lucy explained earnestly. "I'm just changing it. Timothy's sad, and making him happy would be the best birthday present ever." That night, Elena called William in Singapore, updating him on Timothy's struggles and Lucy's remarkable suggestion. "She wants to use her birthday to help Timothy." William's voice was thick with emotion, despite the poor connection. Elena, that's extraordinary." "She's an extraordinary child," Elena replied. "But William, I need guidance on Timothy's medical appointment. Dr. Foster is asking questions I can't answer about his therapy goals and medication adjustments." William was quiet for a moment. "Elena, you know Timothy better than you realize. Trust your instincts about what he needs. As for Lucy's birthday, whatever you and she decide will be perfect." The next morning, Lucy announced her birthday plan to Timothy over breakfast. "We're going to have an adventure day," she declared. "Just the three of us, doing things that will make everyone happy." Timothy looked skeptical. "But it's your birthday. Don't you want presents and cake?" Lucy grinned. "We'll have cake for dinner. But first, we're going to create the best day ever." Elena watched her daughter's enthusiasm gradually lift Timothy's spirits, and she realized Lucy had intuitively understood something profound. Sometimes the best way to heal your own heart is to focus on healing someone else's. As Timothy began smiling again, Elena felt her confidence returning. Perhaps she was more capable of handling this crisis than she'd imagined. After all, love and common sense might be more valuable than experience when it came to caring for these children who had become her world. Lucy's 8th birthday would be unlike any celebration she'd ever imagined, but Elena suspected it might also be the most meaningful birthday of her daughter's life. Lucy's 8th birthday dawned crisp and clear, with morning sunlight streaming through frost-covered windows. Elena woke early, her stomach churning with anxiety about the day she and Lucy had planned. Without William's guidance, and with Timothy still fragile from his father's absence, orchestrating a meaningful celebration felt daunting. But Lucy bounced into the kitchen, radiating excitement, her enthusiasm immediately lightening the atmosphere. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Elena said, hugging her daughter close. "Are you ready for our adventure day?" "I can't wait," Lucy replied, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Do you think Timothy will like our surprise?" Their plan was ambitious. Ice skating at Boston Common, hot chocolate and birthday cake at a cozy cafe. then returning home for a special evening that Lucy had designed entirely around Timothy's interests. Timothy appeared for breakfast looking more animated than he'd been all week. Lucy's infectious energy was working its magic, drawing him out of his worried withdrawal. "Today, you're the birthday princess and I'm your knight," Timothy announced with 8-year-old gallantry. "I'll protect you from any dragons we encounter." Lucy giggled delightedly. "What if the dragons are really big?" "Then we'll face them together," Timothy replied seriously, making Elena's heart squeeze with love for this brave, sweet boy. At Boston Common, Elena initially worried about Timothy's wheelchair on the ice, but the skating rink staff were wonderfully accommodating. They provided a special ice chair that allowed Timothy to glide across the surface, while Lucy skated beside him, their laughter echoing across the frozen pond. "Look, Mama!" Lucy called out, spinning gracefully while holding Timothy's hand. "We're dancing on ice!" Other skaters began noticing their unique partnership, but instead of staring awkwardly, people smiled with genuine warmth. An elderly couple even stopped to compliment their beautiful friendship, and Elena felt pride swell in her chest. During hot chocolate afterward, Timothy surprised everyone by presenting Lucy with a gift he'd secretly prepared. "I made this for you," he said shyly, handing her a carefully wrapped package. "Dad helped me order the parts before he left, but I built it myself." Inside was an exquisite miniature music box featuring 2 figurines, a girl in a yellow dress and a boy in a wheelchair, eternally frozen in their first dance. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "Timothy, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. When you wind it up, it plays the song from Emma's party," Timothy explained. "So you can remember the first time we danced together." Elena watched Lucy embrace Timothy with fierce affection and realized that her daughter was receiving something far more precious than any expensive gift, the knowledge that she was deeply valued by someone who understood her heart. That afternoon brought Timothy's crucial medical appointment with Dr. Foster. Elena sat in the examination room, nervous about representing Timothy's needs without William present. But as Dr. Foster conducted his evaluation, Elena found herself advocating for Timothy with surprising confidence, drawing on months of careful observation. "Timothy's been doing much better with motivation and social interaction," she explained. "But I've noticed he gets frustrated when exercises focus only on physical improvement without considering his emotional needs." Dr. Foster nodded approvingly. "That's an excellent observation, Mrs. Sullivan. Timothy, what do you think about Mrs. Elena's assessment?" Timothy looked at Elena with obvious trust. "Mrs. Elena understands what makes me happy. She knows I try harder when exercises feel like games instead of work." After the appointment, Dr. Foster privately praised Elena's insights. "Timothy is fortunate to have such an attentive advocate. Your observations will significantly improve his therapy plan." Driving home, Elena felt a new sense of confidence in her role within their unusual family structure. That evening, Lucy's birthday celebration reached its climax with a surprise she'd spent weeks planning. She'd convinced Elena to help her create an indoor train exhibition in the living room, complete with Timothy's model railroad expanded across multiple tables. "This is your birthday present to me?" Timothy asked in amazement, surveying the elaborate display. "It's our birthday present to each other," Lucy corrected. "I get to see you happy, and you get to show off your amazing trains to everyone." Elena had invited Timothy's therapy group friends, and for 2 hours, Timothy became the center of admiring attention as he demonstrated his engineering skills and storytelling abilities. As the evening wound down, Lucy made a wish and blew out her candles, surrounded by friends who genuinely cared about both children. "What did you wish for?" Timothy asked as they cleaned up afterward. Lucy smiled mysteriously. "I wished for our family to stay together forever." That night, Elena called William in Singapore with updates on both the medical appointment and birthday celebration. His voice was thick with emotion as she described the day's events. "Elena, I can't thank you enough," he said. "You've handled everything perfectly, and Lucy's selflessness. I'm overwhelmed by her maturity and kindness." She's remarkable," Elena agreed. "Both children are. William, they're going to be fine while you're away. We all are." As Elena prepared for bed, she reflected on how much had changed since that first terrifying phone call about William's business crisis. She discovered strength and capability she hadn't known she possessed, while Lucy had demonstrated wisdom and generosity that would shape her character for life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight their cobbled-together family felt unbreakably strong. 3 weeks later, William returned from Singapore exhausted but victorious, having saved both the contract and his company's reputation. But the reunion that awaited him at home proved more valuable than any business success. Timothy practically launched himself from his wheelchair into his father's arms, his joy at William's return evident in every excited word as he recounted the adventures he'd shared with Elena and Lucy during the long separation. "And Lucy used her whole birthday to make me happy," Timothy explained breathlessly. "She's the best friend in the whole world, Dad. Mrs. Elena took care of everything, and Dr. Foster said I'm doing better than ever." William looked over Timothy's head at Elena, who stood quietly nearby with Lucy pressed against her side. The transformation in his son was remarkable. Timothy seemed more confident, more articulate, more genuinely happy than William had ever seen him. "Elena," William said softly, "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Elena replied with a gentle smile. "This is what families do for each other." That evening, after the children were asleep, William knocked on the carriage house door. Elena invited him in, and they sat with coffee as he shared the details of his business crisis and its resolution. "I almost lost everything," William admitted. "The Singapore deal represented 60% of our revenue if it had fallen through." He shook his head. "But sitting in those boardrooms, fighting to save the company, all I could think about was getting home to you and the children." Elena studied his face in the soft lamplight. "You said you and the children, not just Timothy." William met her eyes directly. "Elena, over the past year, you and Lucy have become essential to my life, not just because of what you do for Timothy, but because of who you are. You've brought warmth, wisdom, and genuine love into our world." Elena felt her heart begin to race. "William, I know our arrangement started as necessity," William continued, his voice growing more intense. "You needed employment. I needed help with Timothy. But somewhere along the way, it became something much more important." Elena looked toward the window, where she could see the lights of the main house, the place that had become home in ways she'd never expected. "I feel it too," she admitted quietly, "but I don't know how to navigate the complexity of our situation." William reached across the small space between them and gently took her hand. "What if we stopped overthinking it? What if we simply acknowledged that we've become a family, unconventionally, unexpectedly, but genuinely?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "The children already think of us as family. Lucy calls Timothy her brother, and Timothy refers to you and me as our parents when talking to his friends." "Smart children," William said with a smile. "They figured out what took us adults much longer to understand." Elena laughed through her tears. "Lucy's been asking me when you're going to marry me so we can make it official." She's remarkably direct for an 8-year-old. William's expression grew serious. "Elena, I know this is complicated. We come from different backgrounds. We started as employer and employee, and we're both still grieving previous relationships. But I need you to know something important." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I loved Sarah deeply, and I'll always treasure that relationship. But what I feel for you is different, not better or worse, but unique to who we've become together. You've taught me that love doesn't diminish when shared. It multiplies. Elena squeezed his hand, her voice thick with emotion. I never thought I'd trust anyone enough to build a life together. But watching you with both children, seeing your kindness and integrity every day, William, I love you. I love the family we've created together. William leaned forward and kissed her gently, a kiss that tasted of new beginnings and hard-won hope. When they separated, Elena laughed softly. The children are going to be insufferably smug about being right. Let them, William replied with a grin. They've earned it. 6 months later, on a perfect spring morning, Elena and William were married in the gardens of the Harrison estate. Timothy served as best man, while Lucy was maid of honor, both children beaming with satisfaction at finally making their family official. As Elena walked down the aisle, she caught sight of Lucy and Timothy in the front row. Lucy wore a yellow dress, not unlike the one she'd worn to that fateful party 2 years ago, while Timothy sat proudly in his wheelchair, wearing a navy blazer and the biggest smile Elena had ever seen. The ceremony was small and intimate, attended by close friends who had witnessed the gradual transformation of 2 broken families into something beautiful and whole. Dr. Foster offered a reading about love's healing power, while Mrs. Rodriguez wept happy tears throughout the entire service. As William and Elena exchanged vows, they promised not only to love each other, but to continue nurturing the extraordinary friendship between their children, the friendship that had made everything else possible. Lucy asked Timothy to dance, William said during his vows, and somehow, in that simple act of kindness, she taught us all how to dance through life together. After the ceremony, as the small gathering celebrated with cake and laughter, Lucy pulled Timothy aside. We did it, she whispered conspiratorially. We made them fall in love. Timothy grinned. Actually, I think they made themselves fall in love. We just helped them figure it out. Lucy considered this wisdom, then nodded approvingly. Either way, now we're really, truly family forever. As the afternoon sun cast golden light across the garden where 2 lonely children had first learned to hope again, Elena Harrison watched her husband dance with both their children and realized that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose, build, and nurture with patient love. Lucy had asked Timothy to dance 2 years ago, never imagining that one act of childhood compassion would ultimately lead to a lifetime of shared joy. But love, Elena reflected, often works in mysterious ways, beginning with the smallest gestures and growing into something magnificent beyond imagination.